not being able to, deliver the kind of support and the kind of instruction that we were used to. So please know that we are trying hard, and I know the staff is trying tremendously hard to ramp things up and try to meet the needs of all our students as best we can. The news out of the state is really nothing new at the moment. As you know, we're closed through May 15th. We were going in 2-week increments this time. The governor was kind enough to give us a 4-week notice of school closings. So we're preparing and have prepared for that. After that, it's really anyone's guess at the moment. If I were Betty Mann, I would probably say we're not going to be back in school by the end of May, perhaps June. But again, that is very slight glimmer of hope on my part, I suppose, to be back in June, because a lot of things have to go into it, a lot of question marks that we're starting to wrestle with in terms of social distancing out of school. How do we do that? How do we feed kids during the cafeteria? How do we keep our staff safe? How do we keep the students safe? So we're trying to develop a reopening plan now as we begin to examine all the needs that we're going to have. But we know that's going to be a major hurdle, which is perhaps one of the reasons why we haven't heard any announcements about school openings yet. But please know that working on our instructional plan, working on a reopening plan, working on contingencies for end of the year activities every day, and thinking about them every day. We have no update on the budget vote or Board of Ed election quite yet either. Right now they're pushed into June. So you'll hear more about that as soon as we hear about it. So we try to keep you informed as we learn information as best we can. And so as I learn information from the state, I'm on many meetings during the week with other superintendents, with the county executive office, some of the state senators occasionally, just trying to learn everything there is to learn about the news out of Albany. But quite honestly, it sits on the governor's desk, and he's the one who will be making all these decisions moving forward for all of us, and we'll have to respond accordingly. But I know you have a heavy agenda tonight, so I'm not going to talk too much further, but I want to again thank you for coming on tonight, inviting us to the meeting and being able to participate. And please know that we value the feedback. We value your input. We don't know everything that's going on at home in your lives as you become our partners in teaching and co-teaching and doing things that that normally would be handled during the school day. You're now forced to do that at home. So please share that information with us so we can help support you and your children moving forward. So with that, Leah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Can I ask a question before you go?
Sure.
I'm just wondering, in the superintendent's meetings that you're attending for the county or the state, does the topic of special ed come up at all? And if so, maybe there's a bigger perspective that you can share with us about what's happening in this field?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that it comes up almost every meeting, as everyone is challenged to meet the needs of our special ed population. I don't know that anybody has a grand solution for it, unfortunately, but we try to share best practices among us. We try to talk to each other about how they're handling therapies and speech sessions, and how they're supporting their students through the resource rooms, and then the special classes, how they're trying to do that. And I can tell you we're doing pretty much everything that everybody else is doing amongst my colleagues. No one has that answer that's going to suffice for everybody, but the more we learn, the more we share. So I will tell you, it comes up almost every meeting when we're talking about distance learning and what people are doing, because everybody's frustrated and challenged by it, Margaret. It's not just us, and it's not just you. I would say the entire everyone out there is struggling with the same issues. And we're trying to also advocate to state to give us some better guidelines about what's permitted and what's not permitted, and what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. It hasn't come yet from the State Department. We have an interim commissioner right now who's not an educator, so I don't know how much direction we'll get from her in that regard. But we have reached out and I know my association's actively advocating for some sort of guidelines and direction. And by the way, I'm not leaving, so I'll be on all night in case you have other questions.
Thank you.
Sure.
Rachel, would you like to get started?
Sure, thank you. It's really nice to see all of you. I want to give a shout out to Leah and Margaret, who not only coordinated this evening's meeting, but solicited the feedback. As Roy mentioned, 10 pages, single-spaced, really good, valuable, important information. And I appreciate that a great deal. Especially given these circumstances, we welcome that feedback. We welcome feedback in ordinary circumstances, but certainly now it's even more important because we don't have the luxury of being with your kids for 6.5 hours a day. And as Roy said, we do miss that. So continue to give us feedback, whether it's your special ed teacher, psychologist, related service, me. It doesn't matter who you're giving it to. Just keep that line of communication open so we have a better handle on what's working well and what, if anything, we can tweak. These are, you've heard me say this, unprecedented times. We are in uncharted waters, and we started this remote learning without a playbook. I think we were doing pretty well when we were in the building. But this is something completely different. And we hit the ground running. That's not to say that our instruction and our strategies haven't evolved. They continue to. But that very first day, we had the related service people came into the building, even though we were already on remote learning, and they met together as a department with Carol Ann Del Giudice, and they created a website immediately with a number of resources and activities. And I know that came out at a time when we were all feeling very overwhelmed, but I do encourage you to look at that website and at the psychologist's website, because there's just a tremendous amount of important information on there. I want to take a moment. I don't know if you can scroll through your Brady Bunch screens and see the number of faculty that have joined us tonight. And I think that's a real testament to our commitment to your children and our willingness to really do everything we can to the extent possible given these circumstances. I want to acknowledge that that as parents, you've really been thrown a curveball. We want your kids back in school. We would not have wished for this in our biggest nightmares. This is something that you have been a curveball, as I said, that you've been thrown with really very little warning. And I want to acknowledge that because as faculty, we have our struggles too, right? We have our responsibilities at home to our partners, our children, our household, and we're juggling that with working remotely. And so we can well imagine as parents what you've been forced to have to deal with. And we appreciate that, and we stand alongside you as your partners. I have asked a few faculty who wanted to speak tonight to kind of summarize what's going on in their areas of the school. But before I do, I did glean some themes from the feedback, and I wanted to just touch upon some areas quickly. The first being evaluations. There were a number of questions about both initial evaluations as well as triennial evaluations. In terms of the initial evaluations, we have a number of students who were in process, meaning that there are some aspects of the evaluations that have been completed, some in process, some not have yet started. I have met with the psychologist. We have reviewed each of those children individually. If they haven't already reached out to you, they will be reaching out to you to determine what's the most appropriate next step, given that the evaluations aren't complete. For example, we may have enough data to determine, you know what, let's get that child into a skills group or into a learning center or resource room group or into a related service. And with your consent, we'll do that informally now, even though the evaluation process is not yet complete and we haven't gone to the Committee on Special Education yet. Certainly, as soon as we know that we are back, we will be able to schedule the completion of those evaluations. Same for the triennial evaluations. We have a running list. We know who is due and when. And again, once we know when we're back in the building, we can start getting those on the calendar. I do know we're going to want to be a little careful and work closely with the families in terms of that scheduling, because I know that there are many kids who are just going to be desperate to get back to their school schedule and the normalcy of being in class. So we are going to look at that carefully together to schedule those remaining evaluations. In terms of related services, that has evolved. As I said, everything from starting off with a website of resources to being in touch with families weekly and providing individualized activities, to more recently doing some live video conferencing. So that continues to evolve. It is a, I have to stop looking at the chat because that's going to throw me off. Thank you, Margaret. It will, so they are doing, they just started doing some video conferences, and the frequency and duration of that is going to depend on the child. The child's prerequisite skills and abilities to engage with that screen time will help us as in parent and provider, to determine what level of intervention makes most sense given these circumstances. I do just want to say that I encourage you to maintain your trust in us. We care very deeply for your kids. We are working tirelessly to provide services for them in a way that is appropriate and to the greatest extent we can, given these circumstances that none of us really want to be in. We are conducting annual review meetings. We're trying to stick to that schedule. And I have to tell you, it's been really nice to see the teams come together with the parents and to talk specifically not only about how the children were doing prior to remote learning, but how they're doing now, and using that information to make some informed decisions about the fall. So those have been going really well. You should be getting your Zoom invites hopefully shortly. And if you have any questions about that, any concerns, not comfortable doing it over Zoom, let us know and we can do a teleconference. Christine will speak a little bit to our special classes and the instruction there, but I did want to speak specifically to the summer program. As many of you are aware, we have children who are eligible for 12-month services to prevent substantial regression. And that certainly takes on a new meaning given this remote learning. We are meeting together to come up with 2 contingency plans. One, what would our summer program look like for our special class students if we are in the building, and we desperately hope we can be. But that decision is not a local one. We've got to look to the governor and state ed to help us determine if it is safe to have children in the building. And as I said, we really hope that that is the case. So we're already talking about what that summer program would look like if we are back in the building versus what our summer program will look like if we need to continue instructing remotely. So we are coming up with those 2 plans. So we have them at the ready for whatever July 1st brings. Another plan that we have been discussing as a group is the social and emotional well-being of our students. And this is not specific to special education, and yet they do feel things just as the others. And we want to make sure that as we think about reentry, that we are well equipped and well prepared to address whatever is needed. We don't know how faculty are going to feel coming back into the building. We certainly don't know how some of the children are going to respond to that. And so we've got the best in the business here, and we're going to take advantage of that expertise and to craft a plan about how we best monitor, identify, and address the social and emotional well-being of our students and our faculty upon reentry. So as that plan is formulated, certainly we will report that out to the community. Before I introduce some faculty members who would like to speak, I just wanted to say that that I think I know this community fairly well. It's my 25th year here, and I have proudly served this school and greater community. And if I've learned nothing, it's how resilient we are. This is a community that has come together in very sad and traumatic circumstances, and we're stronger as a result. And I look at what we're experiencing now, and I know we're going to come out of this stronger as a result. And so I want to thank you for partnering with us and for allowing us to continue to support your children and you. So Christine Dowd, do you want to start us off in terms of talking a little bit about special education in the elementary school as our curriculum leader?
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. And hi to everybody. It's so good to see you all. It's really, really nice to see you all. I miss your children and all of your faces as well. So in the elementary school for our special education students, we are working very closely with Tricia and Rakia and our Gen Ed colleagues, if not daily, even sometimes hourly, depending on the day. We are a very tight family unit in the elementary school, and I think that we are kind of following this one size does not fit all for our special ed kids. And I'm impressed when I meet with the special ed teachers and the related service providers and Manu and Samantha on our daily or weekly meetings that it really doesn't look the same on every grade level, K to 5. It looks exactly as what each child needs. And I'm impressed with that. And I really am so thoroughly impressed with the time and the effort the teachers are putting into meeting the needs of your children. And as a parent of a child with an IEP myself, I see you and I hear you, and I am in this struggle with you. And I just want to say that because I know that this is not easy. And I just wanted to put that out there. I'm kind of living this with you a little bit. So in the elementary school, some updates on what we're doing. We are sending out either special class or resource room. We're sending out either a daily or a weekly doc, either on Google Classroom or through one of the Google G Suites to the parents. I think it's really important that we have daily communication with our parents. Again, the feedback is really important for us to tweak as we go. We've evolved tremendously. And what that looks like, again, is different on every grade level for every student, but the goal is, for resource room, for example, is to take that curriculum and modify it in such a way that your students can learn and digest it and be as successful as possible, which is similar to what we do when we're in the building, just looks a little different now. Most recently, we've added our Zoom sessions, which we are all absolutely loving. Along with our gen ed colleagues, we are trying to stick to 3 a week, but we are being really mindful, and we know that your children have 3 classroom Zooms, maybe a lunch bunch Zoom, maybe a related service provider is reaching out to them. So we are mindful of that, as we don't want to overwhelm them with screen time. But we have started that, which is going really great. Either small group or special class is meeting as a class. We're also collaborating and jumping in on our Zooms with our gen ed colleagues, which is really fun to see. So, we're working really close again with Trisha and Rakia and Manu and Samantha, and we are here. Every day in my daily email to my parents, I say, I'm here. Just give a call, send an email, and it's really important for you to know that you can reach out at any time.
Thank you, Christine. Julia Brogan is our secondary 6 through 12 curriculum leader.
Hi everyone, so good to see you. I was fun going through all the different screens and seeing all the familiar names. So that was kind of fun for me. So I'm just going to talk a little bit sort of about middle school and high school. You're dealing with adolescents, so really I kind of feel like every day and every week has been a very sort of like different for us, and sort of like their needs are very different based on sort of like who they're presenting, what self they're presenting at the present time. So I feel like a lot of sort of what we've been doing is sort of just creating sort of a very safe environment for them, something that they're comfortable with. So either doing that through Google Classroom, which we all have a Google Classroom that's very active, and then also setting up sort of Zoom sessions for the kids, either during resource room or also sometimes too, just sort of like little breakout rooms for them. So we're still running the kids still have like their regular schedule. So if they were in the building and they saw teacher period A, they still see that teacher period A for resource room and consultant teacher. And then skills is still a pull out. So rather than going to sort of music or exploratory, they'd be coming to see their skills teacher. So we've kind of kept that structure very clear for them, so all the kids know where they're supposed to be, and then and that we're always available for them. I would say our biggest thing is sort of, like I said before, is sort of making connection, but then also motivating the kids to do the work, because we were sort of very often sort of like their cheerleader or the one kind of telling them why this work was important. So I feel like that still continues to be our role in our job, as well as sort of being an advocate for them, seeing when they are struggling or if something's too difficult for them, or kind of knowing when to step in to kind of figure out if things need to be modified. We're finding ourselves sometimes modifying more things now than we did when we were in the classroom, or at school, I should say, because they don't have as much support. They don't have that person next to them or that teacher they can run down the hall to ask a question for on the fly. So we've been doing a lot more of that. We're also, I find that also just sort of management of all the assignments and all the different platforms have been a little troublesome for some kids. So we've been creating sort of shared docs with their academic teachers, the parents, the students, if those things happen to be sort of difficult for them. So again, just like what Christine was saying, each kid has different needs. And again, those needs are constantly changing, and we're just sort of trying to meet them exactly where they are. The classroom teachers, we have weekly team meetings with them. So in the middle school, so we're part of sort of any of those discussions. We bring up kids if we have any concerns. We're sort of accessing the people we need to. In the high school as well, they're contacting any of the guidance counselors or psychologists if there's any kind of concerns. So I'd really kind of feel like our biggest thing too, I've been trying to keep looking for the silver lining in all of this. And the silver lining of it is the fact that I'm finding that our students are becoming a lot more independent, and they're actually becoming, a lot of them are figuring out how to be self-directed learners because they were forced to. They have no choice. And I kind of feel like if we sort of start to sort of shift our thinking on this, is the fact that there is a lot of really great takeaways. They're learning how to read directions and then follow all those directions because there's so many directions. They're now looking more sort of like the small little details, because if they forget to turn something in, there's nobody over their shoulder telling them to turn that in, or I didn't get it. So I'm noticing the kids are really starting to step up, And I'm actually kind of impressed by that. So I kind of feel like it's sort of something, you know, positive to take away from all of this experience. But I guess just to end, know that we are in constant contact with all of the academic teachers. They're constantly keeping us in the loop. They often invite us into their classrooms for like a Zoom session when they're introducing a new unit. So this way we know it as well, because many of them have sort of revamped a lot of their units. So we're sort of in the know. And we miss your kids. That's why we're teachers. So this is really hard for us. We like that kind of connection and being able to help the kids. So that's where we're at. So thank you.
Before we go on to the psychologist who would like to speak, I want to address a question that was just put in the chat specifically about elementary school special classes. As I know it's clear to many of you, special class instruction is a particular challenge. That's not unique to Bronxville. I am on Zoom meetings weekly, at least weekly, with my counterparts in the area. And it is the special class students that we are most concerned about, quite frankly. And that is for all of the reasons you would think that is for. These are students that, generally speaking, need a tremendous amount of adult support to learn new concepts. And we provide that adult support throughout their school day when they're in the building. And that is much, much harder to achieve remotely, and has put a tremendous burden and challenge on parents. I mean, those parents who are in those classes know that we started off with using Google Classroom as a consistent platform where there were individualized activities and tasks for the children on a daily and weekly basis. Teachers have been in touch with parents. More recently, we are introducing some live teleconference, video conferencing, pardon me. It works well. It works better for some students than others. And we continue to evolve our strategies and our instruction remotely, given how the students are presenting. I would like to now introduce Dr. Thomas, Manu Thomas, and Dr. Samantha Lewis, two of our school psychologists, to talk a little bit about how they're addressing our students with learning differences.
Good evening, everyone. As has been stated, it's so nice to see you all, and we miss your kids tremendously. Overall, we have been so proud of how our students have been navigating these myriad changes during this time, and with how they have been adjusting to this new period of remote learning. We have been especially proud of their flexibility and resilience, their ability to engage with us and to self-advocate, and with their willingness to engage in the many online platforms. As a team, as has been also stated, we have been working very hard to meet our students where they're at, socially, emotionally, and academically, to the best of our ability. And we are very pleased with how we've been able to keep up with providing a continuum of services throughout during this phase, the elementary, middle, and high school. The psychologists are working closely with all of the teachers, counselors, and administration to ensure that all of our students are well cared for and that their needs are being met in all capacities. We regularly discuss student progress, identify areas of concern, and continually evaluate how our plans are working. Overall, our support is always evolving so that we can meet students where they're at and make any adaptations as needed. We have also been in ongoing communication with parents to ensure that our students are receiving the support they need to be successful. Again, we rely on that feedback from you since we don't get to see them every day. We have had consultations with parents regarding many varied areas of concern, which have included struggles with social, emotional, and behavioral variables, as well as difficulties with executive functioning skills engaging with the work, and overall workload management. In order to provide further resources, as Rachel had mentioned earlier, we're so excited about the creation of our new psychology department website. We've compiled resources for students and parents there, and these are organized by a general homepage and then subpages for elementary, middle, and high school. There are lots of fun activities on there, like fun mindfulness activities and challenges for our students to try. And we've been adding to the website already over the past few weeks, and we will continue to do so on an ongoing basis.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about our direct support services that we're really proud of and got going as soon as we were able to get consents and get the groups going. So the psychologists, as well as our psychology interns, are leading individual and group counseling sessions with our students primarily via Zoom or also over the phone if that is a student's preference. It's been so great to be able to connect with them in this capacity face to face, and this is really the highlight of our days. We're so proud of our students for taking responsibility and logging on for their sessions and for being so present, attentive, and open to this modality of intervention. Due to their openness, we've been able to provide support in many different areas, including overall social emotional functioning, stress and anxiety management, executive functioning skills, including how to make a schedule, prioritize and stay organized, fostering social connections during this time, the importance of self-care, and using strategies such as mindfulness, healthy eating, and sleeping habits, and ensuring that students are mindful of including fun activities that bring joy into their daily practice. And sometimes we just talk about what they want to talk about because that's what our students sometimes really need and want, and we get so much out of these conversations as well. And sometimes they just want to talk to each other because sometimes the groups aren't, they might not engage in those conversations outside of it. So, and then our counselors have also been conferencing with students and parents as needed for support as well. In addition to the Zoom sessions, we've also created some Google Classrooms to post engaging social emotional activities, skill work, and sometimes we email individual support as well. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us or your teachers or counselors if you have concerns. We're more than happy to provide guidance and navigate you or your children during this time. With that said, as a parent, like Christine was saying, with young children and being a psychologist and having the skills, this is by no means an easy time. So sometimes my advice is, taking it an hour by hour and making it work for you and your family. So I'm, there with you in terms of the challenge as well. And if we could do anything to support you, please reach out as well.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you, Samantha.
I guess we could open this up to questions. Is that okay, Rachel?
In the chat room, sure.
Okay. I know there's a few in there now, but and I didn't really read all of them. I haven't been looking at them, so I'm not sure if they've been answered, but there are definitely some there. I'll start with a question about if your child doesn't seem to be the child that's figuring out how to do this all independently. And you do feel like you have a great relationship or you're talking with all the teachers, what do you suggest? Back off a little bit or lean in more to helping and being the leader with your child and trying to help this, move forward?
What age kind of developmental area are you?
Obviously, I'm talking about my middle schooler, but in general, I guess you could say, I'm sure it's different for every age. So maybe address like, elementary school versus middle school versus high school. where a parent should lean in more and where a parent should try to hold back more. Because I think that's a big issue right now with this, especially given this pass fail, which I'm not sure what that means or doesn't mean for kids, but for kids with an IEP or a 504, it's not so clear that the teachers, their regular teachers are aware, not aware, they know, but you know, this is all new. They're putting up curriculum for the first time online, trying to put out all of this information. I don't know how they're keeping track of the kids that may need a little bit more time on something, or may need more of a communication with a parent. So how much should you lean in as a parent with a middle school or high school kid? And what does that mean for pass fail if kids are just like not turning everything in they should be turning in because they're not on top of it and getting that silver lining of this experience we're having?
So I'll take a crack at that, and anyone can chime in if they'd like. So that is going to vary from child to child, honestly, because most students need the structure. And if you think about what their school day looks like, it is very structured. They have a place to be every moment of the day, basically. And that's not typically what one's home environment looks like. So I think the more structure that the parents can provide, I'm not saying it's easy, but structure in terms of, this is the time that we're getting up every day. This is when we're going to have breakfast. This is when we're going to go to either our first class or work on spelling, whatever it is, depending on the developmental level. And even to structure in breaks, just so that there is clear expectations and predictability. And I think that can help a great deal. I think collaborating with the resource room teacher is important because they can help, they can be your conduit or your bridge to the regular ed teachers, and they can help you navigate that in terms of if work needs to be modified, if due dates need to be modified, if we don't do that project entirely, whatever it is, we really can count on them. Because they are in touch with the regular ed teachers that your kids have. And they can help that. And they might say to you, yes, do please provide the structure. I've asked him to do X, Y, Z. We predict that it's only going to take 20 minutes. If you can help, support him through that 20 minutes, or they might say, let him do whatever he or she can do in that 20-minute period and put it away.
Great, thanks. Thank you.
If I can just add on to that, for an elementary level, this varies so much per child. Where we've had the most success is when parents reach out to special education teachers and let them know what's going on and what your challenges are. And then we've just been making individual plans for kids. Sometimes we find that the special ed teacher could maybe get on and coach the kid a little bit. Maybe it's just the parent and the teacher talking them and crafting a plan, a daily plan for the child. My greatest advice would be to reach out to the teacher, if there's any kind of hurdle that you're having a hard time overcoming.
There's a couple of questions here about the special classes. I can read them if you want so that everyone can hear what they are, or it says here, so it would be helpful to hear from curriculum leader for special classes. Another question is, what would special class teachers like to hear from parents or like them to do to support the teacher and their students?
So I think that, listen, we believe that the parents are doing the best they can. We're going to continue to strategize and offer different strategies and modes of instruction. And we trust that you are doing the best you can, like we're doing the best we can. And, you know, it's important that the communication lines remain open between the special class teachers and the parents, so that we can hear how a particular activity or session went, and we can make adjustments as a result.
Rachel? Hi. Can I ask a question about the therapies, speech therapy, OT, and PT? And I know Regina O'Dwyer has, in the high school anyway, been meeting on Zooms once a week for 30 minutes. That's what Andrew has. And so that's been great, because now we know every Monday at 10 o'clock they'll be together. But what I'm not clear on, and based on the feedback we got from the parents, is there a consistency in what's being offered to families who have speech and language services specifically, and then also what's happening in OT and PT, if you could talk about those, you know, which tend to be a bit more hands-on. We did get some feedback that type to learn is not really that productive, at least for, you know, one of our families in the OT area. So what are you doing? What are we doing across the board? We're all feeling like we're in little silos and we don't really know what's happening because we're not together. We can't talk to each other. And so therefore there's, you know, question marks about what's happening with these services. If you could just address that, I think
Sure.
would be very helpful.
So as I had referenced earlier, the related services have been evolving. What used to be on Google Classroom in terms of specific individualized activities is now starting to be live video conferencing. So the speech language teachers, on the secondary level, that's basically been in place since about week 2, if I'm not mistaken. And more recently now in the elementary school, the speech teachers have a schedule with their students. It's really important to note here the need for flexibility. We've had, you know, teachers schedule some sessions and it wasn't a good time. You know, we couldn't get the child to the table, and that's okay. That is completely expected. But with that flexibility comes a little a difficulty to then have a set schedule. Because if that child who you were hoping to see at 10, you end up not seeing until 2, but you had somebody else scheduled at 2, you can see the complexities. Especially with our special class students. So we are doing our best to work closely with the parents and to, you know, to get in their living rooms as often as we can. OT and PT is different. It is, that comes with its challenges, especially PT. You have problems with a lack of equipment, lack of materials. But my understanding is that the OTs and PT have been in touch with the families, have been talking to them about specific activities. So that should all be well underway.
Great. I would also ask if you could talk about resource room in the high school. I know Julie Clark is I think doing a lot of outreach one-on-one with her students, and you know, but what should the rest of 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade be expecting with regard to resource room in the high school?
I can speak for the high school for the resource room teachers, because they reached out to to me to kind of give me feedback. So pretty much for each class, it really depends on the grade level, the the group of kids, but they're all still scheduled. So they still have resource rooms. So it's still on their schedule. So they would either be doing a Google Classroom, they'd be having assigned assignments, or they're doing Zoom sessions or different types of breakout rooms. So it really changes based on the day and depends on the group that they have and sort of like the needs for those kids. I know also some teachers are doing some phone conferences with certain kids. They're also just sort of like an email communication with them. It's also based too on the student's preference. So some kids like, you know, posting stuff on the stream for Google Classroom. Other kids just want to be sending email communication with the teacher. So the teacher's been very flexible about that, but the students are still having resource room. And the same thing with consultant teacher in the high school.
So is it fair? Is it fair to say that the middle school is more hands-on in resource room because the need is there, is greater, is different?
No, I would almost say that we're sort of parallel. Like sort of, I think it all depends on sort of like the students you have in front of you. And that particular group is really then about how much support you're providing. But the types of support and the ways that we're providing are very similar in middle school and high school.
Thanks. So Rachel, I think maybe this is a good question for you, or maybe Christine, I'm not sure, or Trisha Murray, but we did get feedback from a number of families in the elementary middle school special class. And I know this is an evolving paradigm, what's happening, but is there anybody who can speak directly to that group of people? Because we got quite a bit of feedback from them. I think there's if I can remember correctly, a feeling that they'd like to have more maybe Zooms. I don't know if you're working on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty clear on the feedback, and I see the comments on the side here. I don't want to get too much into one specific class, although I am certainly happy to speak about that in a smaller forum. But let me do my best to address it again. There are multiple platforms being used. Google Classroom is the most consistent one, and it's been in place since the first week. Individualized activities are put onto that Google document that involve all areas of instruction, okay? That does put a tremendous amount of responsibility, if you will, on the parents. We recognize that. When we have those children in school, we are alongside them throughout the day. We understand that it's not all going to get done. We'd be very impressed if it was. We do not expect it to. In addition, we have started some Zoom conferencing. Again, some days more successful with others, some depending on the child. And we are continuing to work on other platforms. So if there are any more specific questions about that specific special class, I'm happy to take that offline.
Okay, that might be a good follow-up, just a smaller group meeting. Okay, there is a question in here about social emotional. I know I think Manu mentioned it, and so did Samantha Lewis, but could we talk a little bit more about what's happening in that realm and what may be coming down the path on that? Like, and there's a specific suggestion here to perhaps try to get some groups of kids together, not just special ed or say as a group that meets with the psychologist, but you know, a mix of students. So anything more specific to say about social emotional programs?
So feel free to reach out to us. If you know, I think that's a good idea to get small groups together. Currently, we are supporting students who have been receiving services while they were in school. And we've added new students as well. So feel free to, reach out to the psychologists and whichever school, and we'll figure out a plan that works for your child.
To answer Ms. Hartnett's question from the middle school perspective, I think it's well timed. The work that we've done since we were abruptly booted into distance learning has been on getting full groups of students and their teachers to connect and to set and understand the paradigms that we were putting in place, and to systematize and make clear the expectations for full group connective activity. Since this is going to continue for a while, we have to continue to evolve our response to it. And now that we have standardized practices for how people move in groups and how they how kids are responding and behaving in groups, and by the way, behaving very well. There's been a almost no issue with students, statistically completely insignificant. So what comes next? What comes next is group work. What comes next is the use of breakout rooms during class. What comes next is having kids get together on their own and with teachers for smaller group activity. Those are things that are being talked about and planned in grade level meetings and in department meetings. And I think you'll see some of that soon. That being said, the Bronxville After School Club has done a tremendous job canvassing the staff, looking for people to run clubs and little special interest boutique skills or interests that teachers may have to run clubs with students. No subscription will be needed. No, it won't cost anything. But we're very excited for the number of teachers who are taking a real interest in developing those ideas into substantive offerings. And so I'm really guardedly optimistic, but I do believe that within a matter of days, we should see more of those offerings. And I think the kids will enjoy seeing more faces, new faces, being able to join things with people, maybe even teachers they don't have yet. Completely part of the plan and part of the planning. So we're pretty happy about that. And I'm done.
So I guess we got along the lines of the social emotional, just is there any thoughts or plans about sort of the anguish of COVID, and the fact that we all may know people who've passed away from this, and how we're thinking about the trauma related to that some of our families and kids may be experiencing.
Samantha, you want to speak to that?
Sure. Certainly, on every level, we're meeting kids and families where they're at right now, and we are prepared. I mean, this is, in a way, a shared trauma in a sense that we're all experiencing. And that being said, everyone is having their own unique experience of this. It's a shared event on one level, and each individual and each student and family also has their own unique experience of it. So we are, as we were actively you know, supporting our kids with as we know they're at and what they're experiencing. A lot of, we just, actually the psychologists attended an event today, a seminar that's really addressing that very issue. And one of the highlights of that seminar was really the emphasis on resilience and not assuming that we know what people are feeling and experiencing until, you know, we really listen and are present with them. So, and just also that there's a lot of natural resilience that takes place in reaction to these types of events, and a lot of strengths that are shown. So we are prepared and ready to meet kids and families where they're at and to provide more supportive services as needed, or more prolonged services, just whatever the circumstance may be.
Thank you.
Margaret, I also say that, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're always thinking about a reopening plan and a transition back into school again. And that is certainly forefront in our minds, is how do we support not only the students, but our staff and others who, you know, have had some traumatic losses and have experienced some negativity throughout this whole situation. So we're going to have to put a plan in place to help ease that transition once we reopen schools as well. So we are thinking about that too.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, it's hard. It's really tough. Okay, well, if anyone has any questions, now's your chance. Please put them into the chat. Otherwise, we're just past 8 o'clock now. We've been on together for an hour, and we'll thank everyone for being here, but this is your last chance. Come on. If you have a question.
It's not their last chance.
Well, last chance at this moment.
Okay, fair.
That's fair. Thank you for pointing that out, Rachel. I think you made it very clear, all of you, Roy, Rachel, all the principals, the teachers, that the door is open. If you have questions, concerns, compliments, feel free to, reach out to anyone at the school, anyone on this meeting. And
yeah, we'll take those. Thanks.
Yeah, the compliments. No, we know it's an evolution. It's an evolving thing. And, so we're all learning as we go. We thank you for all your efforts.
Well, we appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It means a lot. And we hope we can count on the parents to continue to partner with us.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, I'll let you go. Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you.
Thanks so
much, everybody.
By the way, I did record the meeting if anybody wants to hear it again or needs specific information. And one thing that did come up in the stream was that the website link was not correct for the, I don't know if we have a better link to the,
which one?
I put up the related services link. I'm sorry, this is Katie Brosnahan.
Okay, thanks.
And the first one was not working.
Okay.
But I did add here that there is another link that I just posted at 7:44 p.m. It says the first related service link did not work. Please use this one.
Okay, great. And I will actually also put that up on the PTA website, where we've on the PTA website, we've also put a link to the school psychology pages for each school. So I'll add the link there as well, so that there's like a one-stop shopping for anybody who needs the links.
That's great. Thank you, Leah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Good
Stay
night.
safe, everybody.
Okay.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Bye-bye.